I remember the day I first realized I was in love with my own twin. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was never supposed to be this way. But fate has a peculiar way of twisting what should be into what is. My name is Grayson. I'm the older of us by 7 minutes, a fact I never let Micah forget. We've shared everything from the womb to our bedroom for the past 18 years. But somewhere along the line, sharing turned into something else entirely. Our story isn't one you'll find in fairy tales. It's complicated, messy, and forbidden. But it's ours. It began during our junior year of high school. We'd always been close, closer than most twins, our mother would say with a proud smile. We finished each other's sentences, knew each other's thoughts before they were spoken, and moved through life as if we were two halves of the same person. The realization didn't come like a lightning bolt. It was more like the slow rising of the tide, inevitable and unstoppable. I started noticing things about Micah that I'd never paid attention to before. The way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed, how he always ran his fingers through his hair when he was nervous, the same sandy blonde hair as mine, but somehow it looked better on him. One night, we were studying in our room. I was sprawled across my bed with a calculus textbook, while Micah sat at the desk, hunched over his laptop. The soft glow of the screen illuminated his face in the dim room, casting shadows that accentuated his jawline. My jawline, technically, but his seemed more defined, more perfect. "Stop staring at me," he said without looking up. "It's creepy." I hadn't even realized I was staring. I wasn't staring. I lied. Just zoning out. He glanced over his shoulder, one eyebrow raised in that skeptical way only Micah could manage. "Right. Because there's nothing more fascinating to zone out at than my back. Your posture is terrible," I deflected. "You're going to have the spine of an 80-year-old by the time we graduate." Micah rolled his eyes and turned back to his work. "Thanks, Mom." But something had shifted in that moment. I felt it, a tension that hadn't been there before, hanging in the air between us like an unspoken question. Days passed, then weeks, and the feeling only grew stronger. I found myself making excuses to be near him, to touch him, playful shoves, an arm around his shoulders, wrestling matches that lasted a bit too long. Each contact sent a jolt through me that I couldn't explain, didn't want to explain. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong. He was my brother, my twin. But I couldn't stop the thoughts, the feelings that were taking root deep inside me. The breaking point came during spring break of that year. Our parents had gone to visit our grandparents for the weekend, leaving us alone in the house. We'd spent the day by the lake near our home, swimming and sunbathing, pretending everything was normal. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the water, Micah dove in one last time. I watched from the shore as he surfaced, water streaming down his face, his chest, droplets clinging to his eyelashes. My heart clenched painfully. He swam back to shore and collapsed beside me on the blanket we'd spread out. "What's up with you lately?" he asked, propping himself up on one elbow. "You've been weird." "Weird how?" I tried to keep my voice casual, but it came out strained. "I don't know. Distant. Like you're here, but you're not really here." His eyes, identical to mine in color but somehow always more expressive, searched my face. "Are you mad at me or something?" "No," I said quickly. "Of course not. Then what is it?" I looked away, focusing on the ripples in the water. "It's nothing." "Bullshit," he said, sitting up fully now. "We don't do this, Gray. We don't keep secrets from each other." The irony of his words wasn't lost on me. If only he knew the secret I was keeping. "Some things are better left unsaid," I muttered. "Not between us." He grabbed my shoulder, forcing me to look at him. Never between us. Maybe it was the intensity in his eyes, or the pressure of his hand on my skin, or the weeks of suppressed feelings finally boiling over. Whatever it was, something inside me snapped. You want to know what's wrong? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't stop thinking about you. Not as my brother, but as more. And I hate myself for it. I hate that I feel this way, that I can't make it stop. That's what's wrong. I expected disgust, anger, horror, any of the reactions that would have been appropriate. What I didn't expect was the silence that followed, or the way Micah's hand tightened on my shoulder instead of pulling away. Say something, I finally said, unable to bear the quiet any longer. Micah's voice was so soft I almost didn't hear it. What if I told you I've been having the same thoughts? The world seemed to stop spinning for a moment. What? Why do you think I've been spending so much time at the library, at friends' houses? I've been trying to avoid you because I thought there was something wrong with me. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. There is something wrong with us, I said. This isn't normal, Micah. Do you think I don't know that? His voice cracked. But it doesn't change how I feel. And then, before I could respond, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to mine. It should have felt wrong. It should have repulsed me. Instead, it felt like coming home after a long journey, familiar and new all at once. When we pulled apart, both of us were trembling. We can't do this, I said, even as I reached out to touch his face. I know, he replied, leaning into my touch. But I don't know how to stop. That night marked the beginning of our secret relationship. We were careful, so careful. At school, we maintained the same brotherly relationship we'd always had. At home, we kept a respectable distance when our parents were around. But in the privacy of our room, with the door locked and the world shut out, we allowed ourselves to be what we truly wanted to be, lovers. It was a delicate balance, living two lives simultaneously. The stress of it wore on us both. Micah began having trouble sleeping, and I developed a nervous habit of checking over my shoulder constantly, afraid someone might see through our carefully constructed facade. Despite the strain, there were moments of pure happiness. Like when we'd sneak out at night to the old treehouse in the backyard, where we could be ourselves without fear. Or the afternoons spent in empty classrooms after school, stealing kisses between club meetings. We created our own private world within the one we shared with everyone else. But reality has a way of intruding, even on the most carefully guarded secrets. It was a Tuesday evening, 3 months into our forbidden relationship. Our parents were supposed to be at a dinner party until late. We'd taken advantage of the empty house, curled up together on the couch watching a movie, my arm around Micah's shoulders, his head resting on my chest. We didn't hear the front door open. Didn't notice anything was wrong until our mother's voice cut through the room like a knife. What on earth is going on here? We sprang apart as if burned, but it was too late. The look on her face told us she'd seen enough to know this wasn't innocent brotherly affection. Mom, Micah started, his voice shaking. We were just... Don't, she said, holding up a hand. Don't lie to me. I saw how you were together. Our father appeared behind her, confusion etched on his face. What's happening? Mom couldn't even speak. She just gestured helplessly at us, tears beginning to stream down her face. The next hours were a blur of shouting, crying, and accusations. Words like disgusting, unnatural, and sick were thrown around. We sat side by side on the couch, not touching, not speaking, as our world came crashing down around us. We need to get you both help, Dad finally said, his voice hoarse from yelling. This isn't normal. It's not healthy. We're not sick, I said, speaking for the first time since they'd discovered us. We're in love. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Mom made a choke sound and left the room. Dad stared at us for a long moment, his expression unreadable. You're confused, he said eventually. This isn't love. It's some kind of psychological issue. Maybe it's because you're twins. Maybe it's our fault for raising you so close. It's not your fault, Micah said quietly. It's not anyone's fault. It just is. Dad shook his head. I'm calling Dr. Henderson in the morning. He'll know what to do. In the meantime, Micah, you'll sleep in the guest room. And I don't want you two alone together. Not ever. With that, he left us sitting in the wreckage of our secret life. That night was the first we'd spent apart since we were 14, when Micah had gotten the flu and Mom had quarantined him in the guest room to keep me from catching it. I lay awake in my room, staring at his empty bed, feeling like half of me had been ripped away. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text. Meet me in the treehouse. I hesitated. We were already in so much trouble. But the thought of seeing Micah, of being able to talk to him without our parents' judgmental eyes on us, was too tempting to resist. I slipped out of my window and made my way across the yard to the old oak tree that held our childhood refuge. Micah was already there, huddled under a blanket, his face pale in the moonlight filtering through the wooden slats. They're going to separate us, he said as soon as I climbed in. I heard them talking. Dad wants to send you to live with Uncle James, and me to some therapy camp. My stomach dropped. Uncle James lived 3 states away. They can't do that. We're 18. Legally adults. They can cut us off. No college money, no support. We'd have nothing. I moved closer, pulling him into my arms. We'd have each other. Micah looked up at me, his eyes, my eyes, swimming with tears. Is that enough? It has to be, I whispered, pressing my forehead against his. Because I can't lose you, Micah. I won't. We stayed in the treehouse until dawn, making plans, saying all the things we'd been too afraid to say before. And when the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, we made a decision. We would leave. Together. Start fresh somewhere no one knew us, where we could just be Grayson and Micah, 2 people in love, without the weight of biological connection hanging over our heads. It was risky, dangerous even. We had some savings, but not much. We had no real plan beyond getting away. But staying meant being torn apart, and that wasn't an option. The next morning, I packed a bag while Mom was in the shower, and Dad had already left for work. I left a note, not explaining, just saying we were safe and asking them not to look for us. Then I met Micah at the bus station, where he was waiting with his own hastily packed bag. Are you sure about this? He asked as we stood looking at the departure board. We could try to talk to them again, make them understand. I took his hand, not caring who saw. They don't want to understand. And I'm tired of hiding, of feeling ashamed for loving you. Micah squeezed my hand. Where should we go? I looked at the list of destinations. Anywhere. As long as we're together. We bought tickets for the furthest city we could afford, Portland. As the bus pulled away from the station, carrying us toward an uncertain future, I felt a strange mix of terror and liberation. We were leaping into the unknown, but we were doing it together. The first few months were harder than we'd anticipated. We found a tiny studio apartment in a rundown part of the city, the only place we could afford with our dwindling funds. I got a job as a barista, while Micah worked evenings at a bookstore. We barely saw each other, passing like ships in the night, too exhausted to do more than exchange quick kisses before collapsing into our shared bed. But despite the hardships, there was a freedom in our new life that made it all worthwhile. We could hold hands walking down the street. We could introduce ourselves as partners without fear of judgment. No one knew we were brothers, let alone twins, and we crafted a careful backstory to maintain our secret. 6 months into our new life, on a rare day off together, we were walking through a park when Micah suddenly stopped. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked, his eyes fixed on a family picnicking nearby, mother, father, 2 young children laughing as they played catch. "Regret what?" "Leaving. Giving up everything. For this." He gestured vaguely at our surroundings. "For us." I took his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. "Never. Not for a single second." The tension in his shoulders eased. "I just worry sometimes that I've ruined your life." "You are my life," I said simply. "Everything else is just details." He smiled then, that crooked smile that never failed to make my heart skip a beat. "When did you get so philosophical?" "Must be all those books you bring home from the store." I pulled him closer. "I mean it though. I choose this, choose you, every time." We were building a life, piece by piece. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And for a while, it seemed like maybe we'd actually escaped our past. Then came the letter. It arrived nearly a year after we'd left home, forwarded through a series of contacts to the P.O. box we'd set up for official mail. I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately, and my hand shook as I opened it. "Dear Grayson and Micah, I hope this finds you both safe and well. Your father doesn't know I'm writing. He still can't talk about you without getting angry, but I think it's more hurt than anger, though he'd never admit it. I won't pretend to understand what's between you. It goes against everything I was raised to believe. But you're my sons, my babies, and not a day goes by that I don't miss you terribly. Your father had a heart attack 3 weeks ago. He's recovering, but it was a close call. It's made me realize that life is too short for the silence between us. I'm not asking you to come home. I'm not even asking you to reply to this letter if you don't want to. I just wanted you to know that whatever happens, whatever choices you make, I love you both. I always will. Mom." I read the letter twice before handing it to Micah, watching his face as he absorbed our mother's words. "Dad had a heart attack," he said quietly. "And Mom, she doesn't hate us. She doesn't understand us," I corrected. "There's a difference." Micah folded the letter carefully, his movements deliberate. "Should we go back? Just to visit?" The thought sent a spike of anxiety through me. "I don't know if that's a good idea." She reached out, Gray. "That has to mean something." I couldn't argue with that. After a year of silence, this letter was the closest thing to acceptance we could have hoped for. "Let me think about it," I said. That night, lying in bed with Micah's steady breathing beside me, I found myself thinking about home for the first time in months. Not with longing, exactly, but with a sense of unfinished business. We'd left so abruptly, without real goodbyes. Maybe it was time to face what we'd left behind. In the morning I told Micah I was ready to go back, not to stay, just to visit. To see our parents, to try to build some kind of bridge across the chasm that had opened between us. We arranged to meet them at a restaurant in a town halfway between Portland and our hometown. Neutral ground, where we could all retreat to our separate corners if things went badly. The day of the meeting, we arrived early, too nervous to sit still at home. I watched Micah fidget with his napkin, folding and refolding it until it was creased beyond recognition. "It's going to be okay," I said, not entirely believing it myself. Micah gave me a weak smile. "Yeah. Sure." Then the restaurant door opened, and our parents walked in. Mom looked older than I remembered, new lines etched around her eyes and mouth. Dad moved more slowly, the heart attack having left its mark on him. They spotted us and paused, uncertainty written across their faces. Then Mom was rushing forward, pulling us both into a tight embrace. "My boys," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. "My beautiful boys." Dad hung back, his expression guarded but not hostile. When Mom finally released us, he stepped forward and cleared his throat. "You both look well," he said stiffly. It wasn't much, but it was something. We sat down to a meal filled with careful conversation. We told them about our jobs, our apartment, the city we now called home. They told us about the neighborhood, old friends, family events we'd missed. No one mentioned the reason for our estrangement. As dessert arrived, Dad finally broached the subject we'd all been dancing around. "Your mother and I have been talking," he said, setting down his fork. "About your situation." I tensed, ready for condemnation. Beneath the table, Micah's hand found mine. "We don't understand it," Dad continued. "I'm not sure we ever will. But this past year without you has been—" He trailed off, looking to Mom for support. "Unbearable," she finished for him. "We miss you. Both of you. And while we can't condone your relationship, we also can't bear to lose you from our lives." I looked at them in disbelief. "What are you saying?" "We're saying," Dad said, the words clearly difficult for him, "that we want to try. To find some way forward. As a family." It was an acceptance, not really. But it was an olive branch, extended across a divide I thought could never be bridged. "We'd like that," Micah said, speaking for both of us. "We've missed you too." The rest of the meal passed in a kind of daze. By the time we said goodbye, promising to call more often, to visit for holidays, something had shifted. The weight I'd been carrying since that night they'd discovered us felt lighter somehow. As we drove back to Portland, Micah was unusually quiet. "What are you thinking?" I asked. He turned to look at me, his face illuminated by passing streetlights. "I'm thinking that maybe we can have more than just each other. Maybe we can have a family too. Is that what you want?" "I want you," he said simply. "Everything else is just extra. But yes, I'd like to have them in our lives again. Even if it's complicated." And it would be complicated, I knew. Our parents might be willing to try, but they were far from accepting the nature of our relationship. We would have to navigate a careful path, balancing honesty with tact, openness with discretion. But as I drove through the night with Micah beside me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Hope that we could find a way to be true to ourselves while reconnecting with the family we'd left behind. Hope that love, in all its complex, messy forms, might be enough to bridge even the widest chasms. Our story isn't over. In many ways, it's just beginning. The road ahead won't be easy. Society isn't kind to those who love outside its narrow definitions of acceptable. But we've already survived the impossible. We've fought for our right to be together, to love each other in the way that feels most true. And whatever comes next, we'll face it as we've faced everything else, together. Two halves of the same whole, mirror souls finding in each other what the rest of the world can't understand. I am Grayson, and I am in love with my twin brother. It's not a fairy tale. It's complicated and messy and real. But it's our story, and I wouldn't change a single word.